Okay, Coach, go ahead and start about the season opener.
Okay, well, obviously the kids are excited. We're excited. Everybody's excited right now. It's been a long, hard grind to get to this point. Started way back on January 4th, and it's fun to get to this moment where you actually move into a true game week. I think we kind of made that transition as far as just the kids mentally. They were beginning game week prep for a couple, 3 days here, but now to actually, see it coming to an end and travel list is posted and get to more of a Thursday practice. I think they really feel it. So it's an exciting time. Proud of this group of kids. It's like I told them today, I think there's a transition that takes place with the football team when you start out, and the coaches have a plan. They set it out there for the kids. It's always there for the kids to get excited about, wrap their arms around it, and take responsibility for it. They did that all the way through spring ball, I felt, and went into summer conditioning, and it goes into the strength coach's hands heavily at that point, and I think the kids adjusted to that very well, and the strength coaches did a great job. And camp, it kind of goes back to coaches again, if you will, and putting in the schemes and the plans and the corrections and all those things that come with it. And then at some point, the kids take it over, and that was my challenge to them today is, we're going to be here for them. I know Beaver Nation is going to be there for them, but they've got to take it over, and they've got to hold themselves accountable, and they got to work like pros. And when I say that, I don't mean NFL pros. I don't mean pros in the professional world. I mean pros as student athletes, and that's the level of accountability they need to look at, and they understand what that is and how they need to go about it. So it's exciting. It'll be fun to go and see us compete against someone else. You get a true gauge of where you sit. I know this opponent very well, tremendous respect, which I've said many times, and we'll have a real idea of if we have an opportunity to be a physical football team, a tough-minded football team, a team that can deal with ups and downs and adversities and all those things that come through it. So it'll be an exciting 3 hours and change. Looking forward to it.
Coach, you have had experience, obviously, with the Big Ten and Minnesota. Talk about what you expect this to be like. I know there's some coaching changes there. Talk about the Golden Gophers and talk about this first game of the season on a Thursday night, which a lot of people will be watching.
Well, it's a chance to play on national television, which is great. Obviously, we've competed against this team twice at Wisconsin in a big-time rivalry game, and it is just that. It's a big-time rivalry game. Much respect for the coaches. Coach Kill, I had great respect for him and what he had done. And, Tracy comes in. They've been together for a long, long time. And, I think their coaching staff says it the best right now is that they've built to this point to what they think is a very, very good football team. And I don't expect a whole bunch of change. Tough, physical, play the game the right way. I think they're well taught. They're going to expect to be able to run the ball. They're going to expect to be able to stop the run. And they're good at it, and I don't think a lot of people on the West Coast overall have an idea of how far this program's come and what that university has done as far as facilities and different things that I was able to watch some of it, kind of the back end on their facilities, but they're tremendous, and I think they have a very good coaching staff, and they've recruited well. They recruit, much like us. They go out and they recruit a lot of different places, and I think they do a very good job with it, and that coaching staff has been able to hang together for a number of years. And, the way the kids handle themselves when we played against them, it was a hard-fought, tough-nosed football game, and when you came out of that game, you're in a big boy game, and I'm sure it'll be the same when we walk out of this game, on Thursday night.
Is there anything, more that sticks out to you about those two games that you played against them as far as just maybe beyond just kind of the general style of play, like just anything that you can draw on from those two games?
Well, one of them was the coldest game I've ever been around in my life, but it won't be like that. So I expect it to be a nice night, and the weather will be good. It's a tremendous atmosphere. It's a great stadium. Both teams are going to walk into a big-time environment, which I think is great for our kids. It's an opportunity to take a long flight, across the country and play and be together. So that's positive. But from those games, I would just say, kind of what I said earlier. It was two really good teams, very physical in nature, expected to have success, expected to win the football game, but also had tremendous respect within the rivalry, I believe. And there's some kids that are obviously here on our coaching staff now that played in those games, and I think they would say the same thing, that it's a team that plays the game the right way and expects to win, but also is they're taught the right way to play the game of football, and they're going to be in big time moments. They've been in big time games, and it's one of the biggest challenges as you look at this game for us. Is I know Minnesota is ready for those moments because they've built for this. This team has been built for, a long time, getting to this point for them. And how are we going to handle that? As still a very young team, will be very interesting to watch.
You mentioned it's a long trip, and you guys are obviously going out a day early. So how do you think that's going to benefit you, and kind of what's the protocol or kind of the schedule for going out a day early?
Well, I think anytime you go 2 time zones is basically where we draw the line to say we want to go a day early, and we did it last year with Michigan. And that's just kind of been standard operating procedure throughout my career as an assistant and as a coordinator and as a head coach, that if you cross 2 time zones, you get the kids there a day early so they can get adjusted. We'll handle it well. We'll get up tomorrow morning in practice, and we'll fly over there. We'll get up on what would be a Friday of a normal week. Obviously, it's a Wednesday of this week, and go through our normal game day procedures and go out and have a practice. Wherever we're going, I don't know where we're going, but we'll go somewhere to go practice. And it allows us to be able to get over there and get into a good spot. That Thursday is going to be a long day. The game's not till 8 o'clock, but it's still 6 o'clock our time, so it's a good kickoff time in my mind for us. So, we're lucky to have a university that allows us to be able to do that. I believe it's best for the kids. I think if you look throughout the country, most teams that have the opportunity to do that travel the same way.
Gary, looking at Minnesota and their quarterback, Leidner, I didn't realize he's run for more than 1,000 yards, 10 or 20 rushing touchdowns. Is that a surprise? I mean, he's a big guy, but do you need to worry about him also extending plays and maybe running the ball a little bit?
Absolutely. When we got ready to play him in the past, their offense is going to allow the quarterback to be involved in the run game. And is that philosophy still there? We're thinking yes, but we won't know until obviously we play the game. But he's a young man that has no problem tucking the ball and running. He's big. He's physical. He has no problem taking on a DB down the field. And he also is faster than a lot of people think he is. And, he's been in those moments, so many of those big games. And so I'm sure he'll be very well prepared, and he's going to have a little chip on his shoulder. Just knowing how he competes and, seeing him a couple times up close, he's a competitor, and I'm sure he's looking for this year to be special for him.
And Gary, just looking at the first weekend schedule of games across the nation, I can't remember so many marquee matchups, top teams playing each other. A year or two, I know you're going to Ohio State. Is this a trend, or do you think it's going to continue now more with the 14 playoff? And do you like these kind of games?
Well, I think it's, I'm a little bit on the other side of it. When you're playing 9 conference games, it's within your own conference. And if we just look at the Pac-12, because that's what we care about, you want to, at the end of the day, it sure would be nice to have a team in the playoff, right? I mean, that's what we would all like to have within the Pac-12 at some point. And when you're crossing over in these big-time games and those big-time environments, it's an opportunity to potentially lose one of those spots. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is where you got to play those games and win them to get into the Final Four. But I really believe in our league and our conference. If you go through and you have a loss or you run the table, you're going to have a pretty good opportunity to make that cut at the end, or you'll be right definitely in the conversation. So I think with 9 conference games, you have to take a long, hard look at how you're spacing your non-conference schedule.
Gary, a lot's been made about Ryan Nall and the performance that he had against Oregon, but since then, given that he's had a whole offseason to prepare to be running back, in what measurable ways have you seen him get better during that span?
Body one, he's trimmed himself down. Not that he was overweight by any stretch of the imagination before, but now he was, where was he going to fit? We've had that conversation many times, and when he became a running back, he got himself to 230s, right around in there. He looks good. He's been through camp and done a great job, and so I think he's prepared his body well. Secondly, mentally, between himself and Coach Lockett, they've worked very hard to work on the protections and pre-snap awareness as far as what's taking place within the run game, within the throw game, when he's running routes, his protections. He's always had very good hands, but I think he also is running better routes now. So he's a real threat out of the backfield to be able to catch the ball, and just being more comfortable. Reps are powerful, powerful weapons. He's had a lot of reps all spring and all fall, and as much as we've protected him, he doesn't like that because he's such a competitor, but he's had plenty of reps to get himself where he needs to be, and he's healthy, which is good.
And with him, Cook, and Pierce, do you have a sense going into a game, particularly this week, of how you want to divide up those reps, or was it just kind of go based on feel how the game's going?
Well, I think we got two guys that haven't played. You know, we look at ourselves right now. We talk long and hard, and we've said it many times as a staff, and I've said it many times to you guys. You need 3 running backs in this league to be a quality offense. So hopefully we've got ourselves to that point. We'll see. Right now, it's the same as it was when we walked out of spring ball and walked out of fall camp. Is Ryan Nall is the number 1 back. And AP will come in there and have his opportunities, and Tim will come in there and have his opportunities also. And don't count Jalen Bailey out either. Now, Jalen Bailey is a very, very interesting, unique young man within this offense, and we'll see where those opportunities come and how they arise. But he's done some great things, and I think when you mention the backs, you can't go without mentioning Ricky Ortiz. And maybe he's a fullback, he's an H, he's moving around doing the things that he's doing, but Ricky is going to be a vital part of this offense this year, in my opinion, as we move forward.
Gary, how challenging is it, and what is your approach when you're facing a team like Minnesota in an opener that has a new offensive coordinator?
Well, Tracy's going to stay within that mindset of that he has, I believe, much like myself. I mean, I know the man, really from afar, and a ton of respect as a defensive coordinator and as defensive line coach, and now as a head coach. So I see tweaks potentially in the offense, but I don't see all of a sudden it's going to be a fast break offense. And I'm sure there will be a flavor of the new coordinator in different scenarios and situations. But overall, they're going to stick with what they know works and what has worked for them in the Big Ten and what has turned their program around. So you always look at the film. You study the Lafayette film, and you study a lot of it, and you look at the C kind of tendencies and try to take the personnel out of it, obviously, but you do look at ideas and kind of what is that coordinator's anchor, what's his go-to, and I'm sure some of that stuff will show up. So we go back and forth. You study way too much tape on the first game probably.
Gary, I know Minnesota is not exactly a powerhouse, but as you continue to put your stamp on this program, how big could this win be? You mentioned playing on Thursday night, nationally televised game for kids that you are still trying to reach, recruits, that type of thing.
Yeah, well, I think if you sit back and study the Minnesota program and their schedule, you look at, I'm pretty sure it was the first game a year ago against TCU. You look at some crossover games they've had. You've looked at the games that they've played within the Big Ten, and they've had a very difficult schedule the last couple of years. Many people may not use that word powerhouse for those guys just because of where they are, but I would, because I think it's a team that can line up against anybody in the country, just the respect I have for competing against them, and then listening to what these coaches say about the way they feel about their team. Coaches just don't say those things because they want to make their players feel good. So it would be obviously a huge victory. Any victory for us is a huge victory, just like it will be no matter if you're undefeated or if you haven't won a game for a while, which is the situation we're in. But this is a quality opponent, and it's a proven opponent. And I'm sure they'll prove as they go through this year that they're a very, very good football team. So it would be a huge win.
Against a team like Minnesota, is establishing ball control, run-oriented offense, is that more important for you guys?
Well, I think we need to feel the game, We all know that you walk into a game and they've got a bunch of new DBs playing in the back end that they feel very good about, but we've got to see, how we feel about them. And I think the flip side of us is, how are we going to feel about the offensive line when they get in there? How are we going to feel about our young defensive line once they get in there? How are we matching up on defense and offense? But the control of the game is going to be a mindset on both sides. I guarantee you that. That's a mindset for us as far as, controlling the clock at times. And do we want to do different things and play at different pace and all that? Sure. But I'm sure they do too. But you still want to be able to have a control of the game, and I think that's where, we're at our best. We're, do we huddle? We've seen us, everybody knows we huddle, not all the time, no, but we want to be able to have the kids at peace, especially with the first game and new quarterback and a lot of things that are going on out there. And, their mindset, I would imagine, would be fairly the same. I don't think you're going to see a track meet. It's not going to be, hey, we got to snap it 60 times in the first half to consider the first half to be a success. That's not either team's mindset.
Is there anything you learned about this team as you went through fall camp that you might not have known at the start of camp?
One thing I was very hopeful is that they would become a tight-knit football team, and there's no way to measure that. I believe they have, just watching their mannerisms and watching them around each other, watching them when they're eating together, walking off the field. Today, Stacy brings them candy bars. There's not a bunch of cliques, and guys can interact with each other, and they practice well against each other. They've learned how to do that, I think, fairly well. So those are a couple things that I was very hopeful for. They appear to be more physical against each other, which was something we've talked long and hard about. We talked about getting stronger, and I think we have gotten stronger. But how much stronger is that on the football field versus in the weight room? You still don't know until you play other people. So those are a few things that I think I've learned, but I hope they don't trick me.
Coach, you've got an interesting blend of youth and experience on the offensive line. And specifically, how excited are you for the opportunity that Blake and Yanni have potentially against Minnesota Thursday night?
Yeah, it's a big moment for those kids, for the two young kids to line up and be at two critical positions, which, again, you all know as well as I, the center position and the left tackle position are vital parts of the offensive line. They're all important. I always think the center's the most important because that's where I played. So, but those are two big parts. There's so much communication with the center, and the left tackle's protecting the quarterback. So it'll be fun to see those two young kids get out there and play. They've got a lot of reps underneath their belt. I've asked them, just like the rest of the team today, to let it rip, go be loosey-goosey. And when I say that, I want it to be controlled. I want it to be, again, I use the word pro-like, but I want them to be loose and understand that they've done their best to get to this moment, to get themselves in this position to go play. And if we didn't think they could do it, then they wouldn't be there. Those two kids aren't there just because they're the best we have. That's part of it, yes, but we think they can do it, and they're the best we have.
Coach, you sort of actually partially answered my question in that one, but there's a lot of youth on defense as well, and obviously Darryl, it's his first game that he's played in almost 2 years. Do you let the adrenaline with those guys just sort of run through them, or do you need to kind of bring them back and keep them calm, cool, and collected?
Oh, I try to convince myself and talk to myself about adrenaline and a little bit of jitters. I believe I myself am probably worse than the kids. So I end up talking to myself, and Stacy ends up talking to me a lot this time of year, especially at night. I don't usually talk in my sleep, but apparently I do this last week or so. But we do talk about that. I think it's important for the coaches to talk it out to the kids and let them understand that they're going to settle into their environment. But the need for being nervous is part of it. In fact, my exact words for them, some people say it's nervous, some people say it's scared, some people say whatever, they talk about what it is. But there's that drive inside of you that wants to do well, and that comes with a little bit of nervous energy. It absolutely does, whether it's a job interview or anything that you go through in life, and you need to learn how to control that and channel it in the right way. So yes, we do talk about it, and I think you can get a little bit over the top. Kids prepare in different ways. There's kids that want to sit in a corner and be by themselves, which was me when I played. There's other kids a little bit more enthusiastic and kind of want to get a little bit more excited. There's kids that throw up before a game. I mean, there's everything in between all those things, and it's how you handle yourself and get yourself into the moment. But I encourage them to be them and don't be a distraction, and talk it out if you, again, you're ready for the moment. And if we didn't think you were, we would not put you in this spot.
Coach, a full spring and fall camp now since you put yourself as D-line coach and as a head coach getting back involved. Has it turned out the way you wanted it to? You also talked about wanting to be, I think, 6 or 7 deep at that position a couple of weeks ago. Do you feel pretty good about where your D-line is at now? Well,
it's been great for me, and I appreciate that crew, being a little bit flexible with me at times. It's fun to be back in a position room and teach kids. Al's with me as a GA, and he's a big help for me at practice. He's found his way and can handle some of the individual drills. Coach Chad is highly involved with those kids on parts of the defense. But for me to be in the film room with them, that's my time with them, and part of the individual and the install of the defense, And it's been great, especially at Bend. It was 7 days of being a position coach and didn't have to do a lot of head coaching things on those days, and it really made me kind of go back to the grassroots of coaching, which I think you can lose a little bit track of as a head coach sometimes. They're a great group of kids. I expect them to play well. There's some youth there, but they've battled like crazy, and I'm really, really excited to see how they're going to stack up against a Big Ten offensive line. And there's some experience there. Minnesota has, a couple of those offensive linemen that are new, that are playing for them. But the left tackle's a new player, and the right guard's a new player, both JC players. The center has played a bunch of football. The left guard started, I think, 9 games it was last year, 8 or 9 games last year, and the right tackle's been an absolute fixture at that spot for a number of years, and he is a very good player. And so we'll line up against those kids and see what we've got, how our physicality, how our toughness, what kind of shape we're in, and they've accepted that challenge and are excited for this challenge against a good offensive line. And 6 deep, I would say. We're very close. Paisa and Phil would be kind of the 6th guy rolling through there, and Noke's also ready to play. But I feel very good about those kids. But you're Elu's going to be in there. Sumner's had a very good camp. I love where Kalani is. I love where Baker is as far as his progression. And you'll see those kids in there the most, but the other, 3 or 4 kids, the 3 kids, I guess, will roll through that rotation as needed by package.
And after both of the scrimmages, you'd mentioned, and you could clearly see it on the field, there were not a lot of flags. And you said that you were very pleased with what you dub administrative penalties and lack thereof. Has this been a particularly good year in camp with guys getting it, if you will, earlier than the first or second game?
I believe, yes, to answer that question. And hopefully that holds up. That's when you get into the moment, those critical situations, whether it's lining up the right way or getting the call and the situations and the scenarios that all take place. But it's been pretty clean, which has been great to see. I think that comes with a year of being in the offense, a year of being in the defense, speaking the same language. Like I always like to use that term. It's so important. But it'll be challenged mightily as we walk into the first game. And we all know in that first game you plan like crazy to put them in every spot that you could possibly think of, adverse situations, crowd noise, everything in between to get them into those moments, and hopefully that carries over. But they've been in a good spot, and I think they study the right way. They're not trying to be someone that they're not. They're not trying to convince themselves that they're something that they're not. They've been workmanlike, and they understand that if we're going to win and ever get this thing flipped in the direction it needs to be, you have to be able to functionally not shoot yourself in the foot. And if your opponent gives you an opportunity to convert a layup, you need to convert that, and you can't give them a bunch of layups.
Coach, you had challenged the group of receivers out of spring ball, saying they need to do a better job getting off press coverage and just get better. Mm-hmm. What have you seen from your position group, the receivers, through this camp?
Well, I think with Dave and Brent coaching has been a huge positive, and I would say that for this whole coaching staff, before I answer that question, is this coaching staff is, we went 5-5 on each side of the ball for a reason, and that's been just a huge positive for the kids, and the kids have taken the coaching. They've been coached extremely hard, but this is a really good coaching staff, and I'm blessed and lucky to be around these guys, and I think our players are blessed and lucky to be around this coaching staff. So my hat's off to all those guys, and the time they put in, they don't get nearly enough credit. The receiving corps has to be a big part of who we are this year. They've got to make plays. They've got to make plays on contested balls. There's enough of them to go around. There's 3 or 4 kids we can put on the field that I think are true threats when they're out there on the field, and they'll sometimes be on the field together. You put Noah in that mix. I think Noah is a matchup issue, and he's a very talented young man that's done some good things for us. And Ryan out of the backfield, the other 2 backs, we'll see, how do they catch it? How are they involved in the throw game? But if we're going to be good on offense, we need to make some plays with our receivers. Again, catch the ones that are there for us and then make something out of it, make some people miss in space. But then we have to be able to catch contested footballs. This league, every team that's good, that throws the ball, has a couple receivers that can go up and get it when it's a 50-50 ball. And I would say last year we were very average at that at best.
We we've talked a lot about young players and on offense and defense, kind of still a work in progress at times on both of those sides. But you look at special teams and who you guys have coming back with Garrett and with Nick and Victor, and then I guess throw Trayvon in there too on returns. Just, I know special teams is really important to you, and so just how do you feel about that phase of the game entering this season?
Well, I would say you are correct. We have a snapper coming back, a holder. Garrett's played a lot of football. He's kicked a lot of balls, a lot of kickoffs, a lot of field goals, had a lot of success, so I would expect that to be a very good weapon for us, and it needs to be. They've worked very hard as a unit. They've all gotten, it's kind of a strange thing to say maybe to some people, but as a group of specialists, they've made tremendous strength gains. Their bodies are different, and they've taken great pride in that, which I think in turn is we're getting the ball kicked farther when we want it farther, and I don't know if so much accuracy matters when it's the strength we're talking about, but we're asking them to do some things a little bit different within kickoffs and the structure of the punt game to get that ball going in the direction that we want, and it seems to be in a good spot. You know, I think our challenge is on the special teams side is, you know, you put those coverage teams out for the first time, and it's nerve-wracking. You know, we've got some young kids in spots to play there, but we also are going to play some older kids as needed, so hopefully those young kids answer the bell.
And then just, was there a position group or a player or a couple guys that surprised you during camp that maybe emerged that, not necessarily that you weren't expecting, but that you were happy to see how they developed?
You know, I'm going to say Fred. Fred's done a great job at the left guard position, and his ability to practice every single day in spring, every single day in fall camp, become more physical, stronger. Obviously, he's become much smarter. I think TJ's done a tremendous job of developing Fred, which is great to see. I would also say Marcus in that area. I think Marcus has been through the ups and downs, and he loves this university, and he's gotten better. Anybody that's come to practice, he's more consistent, he's more at peace with himself, and he's continued to do some good things down those lines, which has been, you know, been impressive. And as a whole, I hope we can say that about the offensive line and the defensive line as a whole, that there's been some marketable improvement in those areas, and in strength and confidence and belief and ability to make plays and ability to do what the offensive line has to do in protection and block people.
I know it's been at least a year and a half since Darrell Garrettson played in a game,
Mm-hmm.
but how much more comfortable, Gary, are you this year having someone who has played in so many games and road games than you were a year ago at this time?
Well, it's, you know, a year ago right now, you're exactly right. The quarterback position was just so inexperienced that kids hadn't been in that spot. And to have Darrell in the position he's in, where he's been in big games, he's played in big venues on the road. You know, it's like I say, he's one of the quarterbacks that's gone in and beat BYU at BYU Stadium. That's hard to do. Not a lot of quarterbacks have much success there, and you know, it's a good feeling to, you know, have a guy that's been in the moment. And like I say, there's nothing like reps. There's nothing like game reps. There's nothing like practice reps to get you into a position to go. His team has definitely accepted him as the quarterback and their leader, and I'm excited to see him play. And you know, he's produced pretty good when he's in there, and he'll have high expectations of himself, there's no doubt.
On Darrell, Gary, he strikes me as unflappable, almost pretty, I don't want to say laid back and have that be insulting, but just not going to get scared of the big moment. First of all, do you agree with that characterization? And then how important is that on the road when you have guys that might be intimidated by the environment? He seems like someone who might like walk in a huddle and crack a joke to calm everyone down.
Yeah, I could see that. I think, you know, Darrell's going to be very calm to that situation of the first snap or the 100th snap, or if he's got to make a play in the fourth quarter to do something special, he'll be in the moment. And he loves football. He loves the games. That's what he works so hard for. And I think that, and I hope that will be a calming feeling for some of the younger players who may be in that position to have a little more nerves than you'd want them to have. So I would say I would expect that out of Darrell. That's what he came here to do.
Gary, we saw 3 true freshman linebackers in the depth chart. What have all 3 of those guys done to put themselves in position to play right away, and particularly the 2, Joa and Hamilcar, who were not here in the spring? Well,
Joa and Hamilcar have done a nice job. you know, Schmar's there too, and he's going to obviously play. He had a little bit of a head start in spring. But all three of those kids kind of one and the same. Number one, they've learned it mentally and done an adequate job. There's still some studying to do before they hopefully get themselves out on the field, if they do have an opportunity to get out on the field. It is a very complex defensive scheme. It's much, much more complex than we were a year ago. I just think a year later you can have a lot more defense, and they've picked up a lot on that. Joe is an extremely smart kid. He picks things up very, very quickly, and that's what's really allowed him. You know, physically you would say he's a year away, and those are tough calls we've had to make. We knew when we recruited those 7 kids that three of them were going to have to play, and there is give or take on both sides. Yeah, it's great to have them as a freshman, but then again, next year they're a freshman again, and haven't been on an airplane, and they haven't gone in games and ran down on kickoff or KOR or played whatever they end up playing on the defensive side of the football. So they've worked hard. They've stayed healthy. They've kept themselves in position to be able to continually contest for a backup role, which is where they all are right now, and we've got to take them with us and anticipate they're going to play. And we didn't want to redshirt all, 6 or 7 of them. We wanted to for sure play a few of them, because you can't be too stacked up in one spot as you move forward in recruiting. But I don't want to waste their years, but those are very valuable times to get some reps.
And with a lot of those second-team guys on defense, I mean, does it feel, given how complicated it is, that they are getting it at this point? Is it going to be kind of trial by fire for that first game?
No, it should not be. I would expect that if it's on the call sheet and Coach Clune has it on the call sheet, I would expect that they would be, prepared for that moment and prepared to be able to get actively involved within the defensive call, communicate the right way, share the same language with each other, and get lined up and play really hard, fast, physical defense. And that will be our expectations of this crew. So I think they have handled it, and I can guarantee you whatever Kevin thinks is going to be executed, he'll call. But we do need to be multiple. We've talked long and hard about that. Again, as a staff, and I've mentioned it many times, if we're not multiple on offense and we're not multiple on defense and multiple on special teams, it's really going to cause us some problems of where we sit. We have to, not that we have to out-scheme people to win games. I don't believe that that's how you win football games, but we have to be multiple so people have a lot of things to practice to get ready for us at this time and where we sit.
Thanks a lot, Coach.
Okay, thanks, guys.